Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you, Eric.
Perfect. Thank you. Got it figured out. Thank you.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Good morning, Captioner. I see your text on the Stream Text app. Thank you.
And that's a great picture.
Thank you. Standing by.
Good morning, Mia.
Good morning, Sneer. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry I was late yesterday. I had a little technical difficulty in joining it.
You're all squared away today, ready to go?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Just don't touch anything, huh? That's what I have to do. Don't change any settings, don't move anything, don't knock anything over.
Just say yes, 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 ma'am.
Good morning, everybody. It was
Good morning.
wasn't expecting quite so many faces.
Morning.
Where you guys are anxious. That's good.
We want to get it done by noon.
That's right.
Oh, that's at the latest.
Thank you. Oh, Pam is here too. Thank you, Pam.
Hi, Jay. This is Brandon at BSC. Just a reminder, around 10:30, we need to take a break for the captioner.
Correct.
Jay, this is Eric. I'm joining remotely. Ida and Michelle are at the DSA offices at headquarters.
Morning. Oh, Ida.
And just a reminder, thanks Pam for this. I appreciate the email. Just a reminder, we have Brad One-Luck had already let us know that he cannot attend today. Rebecca Lita is not attending today, and April Dawson, who is a non-voting member, she's with CCDA. She's not attending today. So we will, if everybody else shows up, we'll still have quorum. But I just wanted to make you all aware that.
And hi, this is Stephen, one of the interpreters. I just wanted to check in. I know this is day 2. Did you have the interpreters yesterday spotlight themselves? Did you use the spotlight function at all?
Yes, so they did spotlight themselves, and it's really helpful because it pushes you up in the corner, I guess, where folks can see. Yeah, that would be great.
Perfect. We can do that. I just want to be consistent with day 1.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
Stephen, I'll make you a co-host now so that you can perform that function.
You're reading my mind. Thank you.
Good morning. This is April with CCDA. Brandon?
Yes.
I just want to give you visibility or staff visibility to the fact that I need to turn my camera off for less than 5 minutes, maybe 2 or 3 times in the first hour of the meeting, and then I'll have my camera on the rest of the day.
Sure, that's no problem.
Thank you.
And we're glad you're here, April, because I had a note that you weren't here today, so we're glad you're here.
I'm here. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I absolutely am.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I don't know if you all can see the picture that is associated with the captioner, Adrena. I'd like to know if anybody recalls ever seeing one of those pieces of equipment. That's one of the first pieces of equipment I used to do specs on back in 75, 76. Just to give you a little idea of context and also date myself. Dan Kaiser was the engineer that produced that, by the way. I just wanted to give him kudos.
Jay,
Right.
I've seen a lot of change in our lifetimes, haven't we?
Yeah. 8-inch floppy disks, 12-inch floppy disks, 256K. That was a big machine at that time.
Right?
That's KB, not MB, KB. All right, Brandon, where are we time-wise? I know what my clock says.
The person should even step.
8:57 over here.
Oh, all right. I'm running a bit fast on my computer then.
Jay, is your plan to bring the committee together and then jump straight into item 16?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Michelle will be presenting.
That's the way we left it at the end of the conversation yesterday. So if there were any public members that wanted to join, I wanted to make sure that we gave them that opportunity.
Perfect. We'd be happy to respond to any questions the committee may have.
Hi there, sorry to interrupt again. I have the other interpreter who she unfortunately can't find the link that was sent to her for the panelist. Would she have her own link, or can I just share mine so she can join the meeting?
Yeah, okay. Yes, she would have had her own link, but at this point in time, I'm not, let me go into Zoom, hang on a second, and see if I can resend that to her really quick. Or she can just join regular and I'll move her over to co-host.
Okay, so I'll just
there's-
have her join the regular Zoom, and then you'll upgrade her to panelist. Okay.
Yes, and so that link can be found either on our website or in the agenda. I'm not sure what you guys have copies of.
That is fine. And her name
Okay.
is Muffy, so look out
Muffy.
for that.
I
Yes.
will watch out for that.
Wonderful. And I
Muffy.
still am not co-host yet.
Oh, really?
I think it was, and now I'm not.
Oh, interesting. Make co-host. There you
Now
go.
I am. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
And Brandon, you might have this on your radar, but we will do roll call this morning again. Okay.
Oh, good call.
One other brief request, can we please have all of the participants muted when they're not speaking? So we have one participant, one panelist who continue to come in with a live mic, and that disrupts both the captioning within Zoom and the identification of the visual identification of the speakers.
I'll caution everybody to do that, Mr. Fenton.
Thank you.
Mr. Lozano, I have unmuted your phone, so you can now speak, mute yourself or unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, and I will I will mute myself whenever I'm not speaking, and then I will unmute myself as need be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Brandon, I see we have 5. I don't see Michael yet.
I don't see him on the line either.
I'm going to start the recording.
Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. We got coffee. We're gonna be done by noon. That's the plan. Brandon, you want to do roll call?
Sure. Jay Wisman,
Present.
Eugene Lozano,
Here.
Sudhir Agrawal,
Here.
Dan Kaiser,
Here.
Bill Zillmer.
Here.
Thank you. Brad Wonglock is absent. Michael Gibbons. I'll come back in a moment. Omer Mayel.
Here. I thought you called me once. Sorry. Here.
Oh. Rebecca Lita is absent. April Dawson
Here.
and Trevor Finneman.
Here.
And is Michael Gibbons on the line yet? Not yet, but we have a quorum.
So, one piece of housekeeping first. If you are not speaking, please be sure to mute so that we don't pick up extraneous noise and disrupt the captioner from trying to capture other sounds. As we discussed at the end of the meeting yesterday, we are going to take up item 16 first and take an action on that. We had public hearing on that yesterday. That'll be our first item on the agenda. Then we're going to go back up to where we left in the normal agenda process. So before we open for public hearing, are there any questions real quick on that item for staff from the committee?
If possible, we'd like to make a comment and clarify part of the proposal a little better. Is that okay?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to apologize because apparently the initial statement of reasons was not clear, and we will work on fixing that for the 45-day period. But would like to clarify that it is a misunderstanding that this change is changing all transfer showers. It is not. What this proposal is doing is clarifying a conflict error between two sections that makes it difficult to determine what is actually required. So to be very clear, we are only modifying section 11B-809.10.6, which only covers transfer showers in adaptable units. Transfer showers are already only allowed in 3 places: transient lodging guest rooms, multi-bedroom housing units in undergraduate student housing, and in adaptable dwelling units in public housing. In all 3 of those places, there are requirements already in place for full mobility units and roll-in showers. Those units are typically provided first, and then the adaptable units are provided second. The transfer showers at transient lodging requirements are found at section 11B-608.2.2, and that remains a 36 by 48 inch clear floor space. That happens at both transient lodging and at student housing. So the incorrect reference that we are attempting to change at section 11B-608.1 covers all types of showers, and that's what's causing the confusion. The only differences between a transfer shower at an adaptable unit and a transfer shower at a transient lodging or a full mobility unit is the clear floor space, floor slope threshold and at an adaptable unit, shower doors are permitted. We want to keep those requirements completely separate. And so this is just a clarifying change to two different locations of transfer showers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions for staff, including after the clarification? Mr. Kaiser? You're muted, Dan.
Got it. Thank you, Michelle, because I think every single commenter yesterday talked about something other than what your proposal was. And so hopefully that'll put that to rest, because they all talked about access to transfer showers. My comment, unfortunately, doesn't go to the change itself, but if you'll look at the wording preceding your current deletion, proposed deletion, it says that you're going to have an opening of 36 inches. 36 inches what? 36 inches square, 36 inches wide, 36 inches tall. The code needs some additional language here. You see what I'm looking at?
At the entrance opening, yes, I see what you're looking at.
Yeah, it says an entrance opening of 36 inches. Well, okay. Give me some help here.
So, well, the language says a transfer type shower compartment 36 inches wide by 36 inches deep with an entrance opening of 36 inches. That means a full opening, because the shower is 36 wide by 36 deep, and so it doesn't permit any enclosure on one side of it so that it's fully open.
I understand the rationale, but that's not what the code says. The code says that the shower compartment is 36 by 36, and then it says an opening shall be 36. 36 what?
It does, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be argumentative, but it does say 36 inches.
Yes.
I don't think you can take it to be the height, because it would still be a door opening, and that would be 80 inches minimum.
Okay. I'm just, okay. Thank you.
You could add wide. You put in the language, yeah, to clarify. Thank you, Dan.
It doesn't hurt to add the term wide, but I think Mr. Kaiser is unfortunately having dealt with people looking for ways to not meet a logical application. It'd be hard to get through a 36-inch something and get a shower. So logical and deductive is not always what Dan has dealt with as a building.
Yeah, and when we deal with the courts, they simply read the code and they don't try to interpret. They simply read what we have provided.
Okay, so that's staff. Thank you again for the clarification of what you're trying to do. I think the cleanup in the 45-day language on the intent, and by reading out instead of the dots, the complete code change would be helpful. Okay, anything else? Open for public comment.
All right, Mr. Tamesh.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for hearing me again. I won't repeat my comments of yesterday. I just have 2 points, and I'll take less than 2 minutes. At the end of yesterday's session, somebody expressed the concern that hopefully everyone will remember yesterday's comments made by all the speakers in opposition to this item. I know some of you took notes. Hopefully you will be speaking up during the vote or prior to the vote to repeat what those speakers said. They talked about usability or non-usability. They talked about a whole host of issues that a technical study should have done before proposing this, etc. So we're counting on you. Hopefully some of you last night had a chance to look at the US Access Board video showing that more than 30 inches is needed. So really the only point here is that usability should be the beginning and end of the discussion. If it's not usable, if the US Access Board is showing us it's not usable, then why would we go below 36 inches? So the second point I want to make ties into that. As you will recall, during the 2019 session, the transfer showers were hotly contested. Not just for public accommodations, but we wanted them gone from public housing. They went through. We're not here to dispute that, but a legislative bargain was struck that this would have an ADA shower landing, not a fair housing landing. I did take the time to go back and look at the initial express terms that DSA put out. And then I also looked at the code adoption table. They both say in near identical language that the language of 11B 809.6 through 11B 809.12 is written and formatted to align with the 2010 ADA standards for accessible design that is used as a model code for Chapter 11B. That's the sales pitch that DSA put out. You guys are going to get an ADA transfer shower. DSA wants to be able to keep the bargains that it strikes or the representations that it makes when it sells these things. Building standards wants to hold them to that. 36 is not usable. It's correctly written now. If there's an ambiguity with another portion of the code, that should be fixed. This isn't just a cleanup. This is breaking a deal. Thank you folks very much for hearing me a second time. And I hope some of you speak up and have a chance to look at that US Access Board animation showing the greater area that is used. It makes no sense to have a different standard. Just now DSA said, we want to keep the standards separate. Why? Why would we have a separate standard for public accommodations and a separate standard for housing? How am I more capable of using a shower in a housing situation with a smaller landing than in a public accommodation? Thank you again. Thank you.
Mr. Scott?
Thank you, Richard Scaff, Designing Accessible Communities. First, a technical issue. Both Ms. Davis and Mr. Chairman, Mr. Weisnot, I'm having it may be my 79-year-old ears, but I'm having a difficult time understanding what you're saying. Most others I can understand, but the two I'm having difficulty, and I don't know what that means. In any case, I hear what you're saying, Ms. Davis, that you're not talking about a change to the 36 by 36 inch shower and the 36 inch opening. I got it. My problem is what you have done and what the Access Advisory Committee finally adopted or agreed to, and the Building Standards Commission adopted, the 36 by 36 inch shower. Now that we've had a while of experience, we are finding that there is a broad population group that is unable to use that shower. I don't care what the Access Board says. It goes back to DSA saying, oh, well, the Access Board only, and I said it yesterday, only covers tables that are fixed to the floor. I don't care about what the US Access Board says. We need access in California. We have always been the leader, well, I should say always up until about 12 or 15 years ago. We've always been the leader in the country on access. And what we have had is major reduction in access for a substantial number of people in the disability population. So you will go ahead and adopt this today, I can imagine. But I'm saying today, and Eric, I hope you're listening as the person in charge of Title 24 at DSA, there needs to be a review of access and use of what you are now calling a 36 by 36 inch roll-in shower. It is not a roll-in shower. It's a roll-by shower with a side transfer that for many with larger wheelchairs and scooters can't access. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scaff. And I don't think it's got anything to do with your ears. I just need to use my mic better. So hopefully that's more audible. Anybody else on public?
Yes, sir. Ms. Arnold?
Good morning. Thank you so much. This is Connie Arnold, disability rights advocate for 30 plus years. And I hate to out myself, but I'm now 62 and things have gotten a lot harder for me physically and with my disability to function in the built environment. And this transfer shower size involves a decrease in the landing area outside the shower. I use a Permobil motorized wheelchair, which is larger. Back in the 2020 session, when they were talking about the 36 by 36 inch shower, I took some blue tape, taped it out in my yard on the ground, and did all the right, the 48 by 36 inch, and showed exactly what their 36 inch shower would be for a wheelchair user like myself, which was an impossibility for people. And I don't care whether you're talking about transient housing or this kind of housing or that public accommodations. Why the difference? Because either way, this landing size makes it unusable for people with disabilities, people in wheelchairs. And as we spend millions of dollars in building new public housing complexes, we are building inaccessibility in the built environment, which makes it unusable for people to function. We're talking about seniors, we're talking about veterans, we're talking about people with disabilities of a variety of types. And this is absolutely so unacceptable that I don't care what DSA's proposal is in terms of this landing width will make the shower stall unusable for a majority of people out there. And as the public ages, it just makes it impossible. I rolled into where I'm trying to help this veteran at this nursing home, and I can't believe how inaccessible it is and how many people in wheelchairs there are. And I know the reason they're there. And I know that Centers for Medicare and Medicaid and U.S. Health and Human Services wants to move people back to the community. But you can't move people back to the community if they don't have a facility, a housing, and a place that they can use and shower. You are creating an environment that says, okay, if you're disabled in a wheelchair or use a larger wheelchair, that you don't get to take a shower. You can take a sponge bath or a bed bath.
Ms.
And that's
Arnold,
just totally unacceptable.
Excuse me, Ms. Arnold, I'm going to ask you, since this is
I'll wrap it up.
much of the repeat of yesterday. Please.
I'll wrap it up. If I could put my fist into a piece of wood and break it in half, that's how I feel about this proposal. And it's launched me into feeling that I need to go talk to the legislature, because what we need is more roll-in showers. It's an absolute critical thing. And I see this as a reduction in access. So thank you very much. And thank you for your comments about Holland DeLille. She really was an astounding leader of the disability community, as was Barry Atwood and Marilyn Golden, who dealt a lot with transportation and access issues. But thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else on public?
Dara Sher.
Ms. Scher, please do not repeat yesterday's comments. Only
Good
to the-
morning.
Only to the things that staff brought up this morning, if possible. Thank you.
There is no confusion among the people speaking. They understand that we are discussing adaptable units and not the full mobility units. We understand that. What we know is that adaptable units are also used by people with wheelchairs because they can't get into the accessible units. We know this is a reduction in access in the adaptable units that exist in 11B projects. That means the waiting lists for accessible units are going to get longer and more people aren't going to be able to live in these units because these transfer units with this floor space are not accessible to people. And that, I think, has been made quite clear. It's clear in the videos, it's clear in everything else. People understand that what we are talking about is adaptable units and reducing the space in those, regardless of the location of those showers and what kind of housing. 11B, transfer showers in transient housing, transfer showers in other settings. This floor space is not sufficient to do what it's supposed to do. And we urge you to reject this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else?
There are no other hands raised in the public.
Well, wait a second.
We have a DSA and a committee member with hand raised.
Yeah, I'm waiting to make sure nobody
Uh-huh.
pops in on public. Okay, close public comments. Thank you. Homer, sir, question for staff.
This proposal I'm seeing here, I'm seeing the scope is only to eliminate the reference. I don't see addressing those 36-inch dimensions. I understand all the concerns that I'm hearing today, and I sympathize with that, but I'm more familiar with ICC process than I'm with state. So in case of ICC proposals, when you have something that goes outside of the scope of that proposal, they would need a separate proposal for that. So my question to DSA staff is, if everybody's concerned with those dimensions, do you need to come up with a different proposal, or you can expand this proposal to address those dimensions? Otherwise, I think this proposal is only to eliminate the reference to a section. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Homer. I will address the part of that is that the only thing that we can address is what DSA has brought to this conversation. The comments that have been raised, mostly in terms of the shower functioning as a 36-inch by 36-inch transfer shower, are not what the code change is referring to. It is, I would expect, a true statement. However, the dimension of the shower and the opening into a 36 by 36 transfer shower is defined in code, however it got there. And it is a different issue for DSA to bring forward. So staff, do you want to add to that, respond, put some more into the conversation? Thank you.
Chairperson, I'd like to speak, and not being in the same room is a little bit challenging. So if Ida or Michelle wants to clarify afterwards, then certainly I'd invite them to, if that's acceptable.
Okay. So Ida, why don't you go ahead?
Absolutely. I'd like to address that you are correct that our proposals to clarify conflict. If we don't clarify this conflict, the requirements for adaptable unit transfer showers are not clear because there's two different requirements that are being invoked in the code structure. This was an error in the crafting of our language and by making an incorrect reference. If we want to address a 36-inch wide by 48-inch deep clear floor space against a transfer shower for an adaptable unit, that would need to be a different co-proposal for a next time, because we have not, that's materially substantive. We have not advanced that through any of our ACC, through any of our public meetings, through any of our engagement. And so we can't bring that forth at this time. It is too substantive. We'd have to do it in a future co-proposal. And we can discuss that specifically for those showers in adaptable units in a future co-proposal. But if we don't address this today in the clarity of this reference, there's a confusion as to which requirements apply. Thank you.
Questions for staff from Mr. Zelmer?
Yeah, good morning. So I don't deal with residential as much as some people on the committee, so I apologize if I'm not getting this. I'm not seeing the conflict as I'm trying to track through the code from the scoping to the sections on adaptable units. And then it says the opening shall be 36 inches and complying with, and it shows the reference that takes you to a space, a 30 by 48 inch space. It doesn't conflict with anything, it just gives you a clearance. So I do see the argument that this is a reduction in scope in accessibility, because unless I'm missing it, you would have a 36 inch wide opening, but there could be a toilet that makes it very difficult to get in and out of the shower. What governs, if we do this, what governs what might be in the way and the clearance space that would otherwise be required? Thank you.
If I can answer that question, thank you. If you look at the structure of 11B-809.10.6, it says that showers required by that section will comply with that entire section. The size is found at the section we are proposing to change. Additional requirements for clear floor space, threshold, floor slope, etc., are found further on in the section. So when you look at the section as a whole, you have one thing pointing to further locations in that same section that talk about these same items. And then you have another reference to 11B-608.1, which also talks about clear floor space, slope, thresholds. And so you're pointing in the same section, you're pointing to two different locations for further technical requirements, and that's the problem.
So I see what you're saying. So to be clear, I'm looking now at section 11B-809.10.6.3. And if I understand what you're saying, even if we do this, this section of code will require a 30 by 48 inch space in front of that shower opening that's 36 inches wide. Is that correct?
Yes, a 30 by 48 inch clear floor space in units complying with Fair Housing Act, which are the adaptable units. These are not the full mobility units that require 36 inches, including public housing, housing and place of education, transient lodging. Full mobility units still require all the requirements that are in 608.1. These are the requirements for the adaptable units, and all showers in the adaptable units have a clear floor space of 30 by 48. That's not, so right now we're having that conflicting requirement for the transfer unit showers only because we specify the size of the transfer shower, but by this reference also bring in all these other requirements that are 608.1, which is for everything else for all showers. And so there's duplicative requirements, and we need to remove the reference so that only the requirements for adaptable units in 809.10.6 and further on down are captured. So It's not just about the clear floor space at all showers or at this shower. It's a conflict in the requirements. And so that's what we're trying to address.
Got it. Okay, I do see your point. Gotcha. So there will be a clear space. It's not 36 inches wide. It will be 30 inches wide.
Hi, excuse me, this is Brandon with the Building Standards Commission. Just a friendly reminder for the captioner. Can you speak, or when you speak a little slower and deliberately, please?
So may I suggest that staff, when you rewrite this, please be clear as to the fact that the clear floor space at all showers is a particular dimension. This one, just spell out the reference that you want to use so that there's not an ability to argue that we've cut the clear floor space outside the shower down. Leah? Your hand is up.
Mr. Chair? Gene Lozano?
Let me just see what Leah.
Yeah, I actually, Brandon covered it, but we are having a little difficult time hearing you. So you might need to bring your mic closer, Chair. Sorry about that.
Still better? Better?
Yep. Thank you.
This thing must have a side to it, I guess.
I think Mr. Lozano wants to make a comment.
Yes, Mr. Lozano, thank you, Jane.
Thank you. I apologize. I have to ask for a clarification. Because several of you, including Ms. Davis, are really muffled, and I'm having a difficult time. I want to be certain that we're talking about a elimination of a reference to another section, but we're not changing what is in code right now, which is the landing to be 30 by 48, or the landing dimensions is not you're changing at this time. It's just a cross-reference for clarification, and that I totally agree that it should be 36 by 48. That would have to be a totally different proposal. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, to be correct, transfer showers in full mobility units will have a clear floor space of 36 by 48. Transfer showers in adaptable units will have a clear floor space of 30 by 48. And this elimination of this reference is just to clarify those specific requirements. It's not to change a requirement that's already in the code. We're correcting a reference that points to duplicative conflicting requirements.
Which is right now, the current thing is 30 by 48. Whether we like it or not, that's what's there. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Okay. Any other comments? Questions for staff?
This is Stephen, the interpreter. Just one logistical thing. Could somebody make the other interpreter, Muffy, a co-host, please? Thank you.
Sure. I will do that right now.
Okay, so I guess that side of it is done. Let's
We have a hand raised, sir, from
got a hand raised from the
ex
public.
officio.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not seeing that. Please go ahead. Thank you.
I have a question for staff. I understand that today's issue that we're dealing with, just a narrow deletion of a reference to conflicting transfer measurement in the code. My question to staff is that we've had a number of concerns raised by the disability community members today and yesterday about the size of the transfer area into these showers. What sort of process do you envision for reaching out to the community in the future so that this can be brought up in the next revision cycle?
So as Chair Wiesner had pointed out, when this was introduced into the code, I believe it was a couple code cycles ago, it was introduced in a very limited application for public housing, understanding that it would only be used not where it's a public accommodation. Those still require more access than the ADA, which requires the very first, California requires the very first shower in public accommodations to be a roll-in shower, not a transfer shower. ADA is different. ADA requires the transfer shower first. The reason why we brought this in a couple code cycles ago is because we've also received information from individuals with disabilities who were disappointed in the lack of a transfer shower specifically and in the code at all, and that it provided a specific level of accessibility for a certain segment of the disability population. And so that is why we brought that change forward. At the time, there was a lot of debate, but there were individuals who did indicate support for providing that. And so what we've offered with inclusion of the transfer shower on a limited basis and secondary to a full roll-in shower, specifically in public accommodations, is choice, is availability of different variety. And so when an individual who with a disability goes to a transient lodging facility or a locker room at a school or a locker room at a gym, they will first always have a roll-in shower. If there are additional showers, there could be a tub, there could be a transfer shower, they could be another roll-in shower. The first one will always be a roll-in shower that is 36 by 48. Sorry, 36 by 60. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
Roll-in shower.
Roll-in shower, 36, right, 36 by 60. So what we did in the introduction of transfer showers is provide choice for a specific group who also indicated that lack of a transfer shower also limited access. And so I'm just bringing back forth the discussion that occurred and why that was brought into the code. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Okay. We've, I think, had the conversation. We know what we're trying to address with the reference. So I need a motion from the committee.
This is Kaiser. Motion to approve item number 16 as submitted.
Second, Mike Gibbons.
Discussion on the motion? None? Call the question, Brandon.
Jay Wiseman,
Yes.
Eugene Lozano,
Abstain.
Sudhir Agrawal,
Yes.
Dan Kaiser,
Yes.
Bill Zelmer,
Yes.
Brad is absent today. Michael Gibbons,
Yes.
Omer Mayel,
Yes.
and Rebecca Lita is absent. The motion is carried.
Thank you. Thank you all for the conversation and the clarification. Obviously, staff has some direction on not only the formatting of this item, but the potential to revisit the discussion on the transfer shower itself. I appreciate your recalling the history of that, the advocacy by others in the advocate community for that shower. Didn't agree with it, but it went into code. All right, next item, staff.
The next item is item number 11. The code section is CBC, chapter 11B, section 11B-233.3.1.2. And this is also referring to residential dwelling units with adaptable features. There was an unintentional oversight during the 2021 triennial code adoption cycle where we neglected to include adjustments to section 11B 233.3.1.2 residential dwelling units with adaptable features when the requirements were transferred from chapter 11A to chapter 11B. DSA is proposing to amend the applicability of this section to be consistent with its applicability under its previous location, and that is buildings with 3 or more residential dwelling units. The proposal is also addressing a second issue. The current requirements for adaptable units are unclear and could lead to fewer adaptable units than what is required by the Federal Fair Housing Act. In an instance where there may be units on a floor that may not be directly served by an elevator. This proposal, combined with the addition of the definition of an elevator, serves to clarify that all residential units on an accessible route are to be adaptable, except for those units that are required and designed to have mobility features. So it's related to item number 2. This proposal makes changes in 11B 233.3.1.2 by adding the language buildings with 3 or more residential dwelling units. We then change the language under the subsection 11B 233.3.1.2.1 elevator buildings to specifically say that in elevator buildings, an elevator serving floors above the ground floor shall serve all floors, levels, and mezzanines. Then the next subsection, non-elevator buildings, we are changing the title to ground floor residential dwelling units and amending the code language to state ground floor residential dwelling units shall be adaptable. So we are removing the reference to non-elevator buildings.
I also would like to point out that there is a definition in chapter 2 that already exists that defines ground floor units as units served by an accessible route. In this clarity, it means that if there is a building that has separate floors accessed by 2 different accessible routes, that doesn't include an elevator, that it brings into adaptability those units because they are served by an adaptable route. An accessible route. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Am I audible? Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Questions for staff first. Mr. Kaiser.
Thank you. Staff, my question goes to the changes in 11B 233.3.1.2.1 elevator building. You are now requiring elevators to stop literally on all floors, levels, and mezzanines by your language. But isn't really the intent that elevators stop on all floors that have primary entrances? There's no reason to have elevators stop on second floors of dwelling units or on mezzanines of dwelling units if there's no primary entrance to that dwelling unit. We're adding a lot more stops, a lot more openings to the elevators, and creating a huge expense that I don't think it was intended of the codes. So my concern is the way you have it worded, it must stop on all floors and levels, period, whether or not there's a primary entrance there or not. Is that really your intent?
hold on a second as I look at the definition of elevator building quickly one more time.
Well, we deleted that. We didn't approve that.
Two,
I thought we disapproved that.
no, that, further study.
Further studied.
Okay, but regardless, that doesn't matter. You're now requiring that elevator to stop at every level. And that's not the intent. My understanding, that's not the intent of either the ADA nor FHA. It's only required to stop at the primary entrance to the dwelling units.
You are correct, and we will clarify. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dan. Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, open public hearing.
Dara, sure.
I recommend sending this back for further study in conjunction with the definition of elevator building. I think the manner in which we change that definition is going to impact certainly the section we we're just talking about, 233.3.1.2.1. I also think it may impact the other two subsections that are in discussion here. And some of the discussions today have raised some concerns to me with how we apply 11A requirements in 11B buildings. So I recommend this go back for further study for some cleanup language.
Thank you, Ms. Sher.
Richard Scott,
Just Richard Scaff, just want to say that I agree with Ms. Dar. Dar, sure.
thank
you,
you.
sir.
There are no other hands raised.
Second or two. Okay, close public comment. Questions for staff? Or any other questions for staff?
Seeing none.
So does staff believe that this should be considered as a short-term further study just to make sure that it is integrated with the definition that we give back under item 2, I think?
This is Kaiser. The definition doesn't talk to levels that the elevator stops at. It simply identifies that if an elevator is in the structure. My concern is we don't want to force individuals to make stops on floor levels where it serves no purpose.
I understand that, and I think if a motion was made for further study to include not only coordination with the definition and to clarify, as staff said, the application to levels not served by a primary entrance.
Well, and I got the impression from staff that they understood my issues and that they agreed with my issues, because this has been common practice under the FHA for generations.
Okay, so I'm open to a motion from somebody.
Well, this is Kaiser. I'll make a motion to send back for further study based on criteria 4.
Seconded, Homer Mayel.
Motion. None. Call the question, Brandon.
For clarity, this is for the entire item 11.
Yes.
Okay. Jay Wisnant,
Yes.
Eugene Lozano,
Yes.
Sudhir Agrawal,
Yes.
Dan Kaiser,
Yes.
Bill Zelmer,
Yes,
Brad Wungluck is absent, Michael Gibbons,
Yes.
Homer Mayel,
Yes.
and Rebecca Leda is absent. The motion is carried.
Thank you. Staff, item 12.
Thank you. Item 12 is an amendment to CBC Chapter 11B, Section 11B-249.1, Adult Changing Facilities in Alterations. The proposed text adds scoping to provide adult changing facilities at existing public amusement facilities as already defined in the CBC. Currently, Chapter 11B is only requiring adult changing facilities at newly constructed places of public amusement. California Health and Safety Code, Section 11952.5 requires adult changing facilities at both newly constructed facilities and facilities that are renovated on or after January 1, 2025. DSA is proposing to align the requirements of Chapter 11B with this Health and Safety Code section by adding additional scoping for projects undertaken at existing facilities. Our statement has provided the Health and Safety Code section language. I won't read it here, but this is being amended to comply with existing statute. Are there any questions? Oh, I guess I should read you what it says. Excuse me. We've added a new subsection 11B 249.1.3 that specifies the same date in statute on or after January 1, 2025, alterations to existing commercial places of public amusement which require a permit or for which the estimated cost is $10,000 or more shall provide no fewer than one adult changing facility in compliance with Section 11B 813. The exception is for existing commercial places of public amusement that already have an existing changing facility in compliance. They shall not be required to provide additional adult changing facilities. The requirement for a permit and the $10,000 cost is also out of the Health and Safety Code section. And the requirements found at Section 11B 813 remain unchanged and are already in the CBC. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Questions for staff? Mr. Kaiser?
Thank you. I understand why we're doing this, and I'm fine with this direction since we have to by statute anyway. But have we looked at, or has there been any talk at requiring more than simply one at a facility? It seems like, you know, having to require somebody to travel a quarter of a mile to find the only changing facility at a site may be a burden. Have we considered requiring more than what the Health and Safety Code has mandated?
At this point, we haven't gone beyond what is required of the Health and Safety Code. You know, I think a lot of your concerns, Dan, may arise from places like Disneyland or Knott's Berry Farm, or we haven't gone beyond it because there was extensive discussion at the legislative level as to the requirements, and they specified one. And so we have not yet revisited that.
Okay, I would appreciate that you would look at it because I'm speaking specifically of Disneyland, and I realized I had to go all the way back out to the entrance area to be able to access an adult changing facility. So that was quite an inconvenience. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Gene Lozano.
Mr. Lozano.
I have to agree with Mr. Kaiser. For a place, amusement place like Disneyland or Disney World, Epcot, etc., to have to find just one adult changing facility in that whole park, it's just not acceptable with the medical breakthroughs and the survival of people with severe disabilities that do need these adult changing facilities and that want to be mainstreamed as much as possible and be inclusive. I strongly encourage that DSA investigate the feasibility of the next code cycle of coming up with a proposal on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Any other comments or questions on the motion, on the proposal, excuse me? Hearing none, open public comment.
Mr. Scott?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kaiser. I also suggest not only requiring additional adult changing facilities in large Disneyland type of operations, but I'm not clear on the requirement for signage and directions as to where those facilities are, especially in large sites like Disney. So I also, if we're talking about multi-floored buildings, we're only going to have one in a multi-story building. We talked about those, I should say, we talked about similar issues with bathrooms during remodels. And it was clear in that situation, 200, I believe it was 200 feet was a maximum one would have to travel. I think this needs, among other things, a re-review to determine whether we should be modifying code to increase the number required. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Other public comment?
Bob Raymer?
Thank you. This is Bob Raymer representing the California Business Properties Association and the Building Owners and Managers Association. And having worked on this bill, it was going through the legislature. I think DSA has done a great job by basically bringing into regulation the direction from statute, which, as Ida Claire mentioned, there was extensive debate on this over the course of a year. Having said that, please keep in mind that the code changes that you're looking at today, not only here, but in the other provisions, would take effect on July 1st, 2024. And of course, the statute had a January 2025 effective date. DSA has put that in there. But if for some reason this gets sent back for further study, you're not going to have anything in the code. There really isn't enough time right now to make substantive changes to this. It's got to go back to the Access Code Collaborative, et cetera, et cetera. But I think getting something into the code now for these amusement park retrofits would be well worth the while. And if you want to look at tweaking this down the road, certainly that's up to DSA. But you know, DSA's done a good job of following the statute. So at the very least, you know, get this into the code now so they can meet their statutory deadline and then move on. Thank you.
Thank
No
you.
other public hands raised.
Okay. Close public comment. Questions for staff? Seeing none. Motion, please.
Kaiser, motion to approve item number 12 as submitted.
Bill Zellmer, second.
Call the question.
Jay Wiseman,
Yes.
Eugene Lozano,
Yes.
Sudhir Agrawal,
Yes.
Dan Kaiser,
Yes.
Bill Zelmer,
Yes.
Brad Wungluck is absent, Michael Gibbons,
Yes.
Omer Mayo,
Yes.
and Rebecca Lita is absent. The motion is carried.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Gene Lozano.
Mr. Lozano, yes.
I was trying to ask this earlier. If I want to agree with Mr. Raymer. DSA has done an incredible job with this issue, and I hope we can broaden its scope down the road. And I would like, just for the record, that I'd like to see the scope increase, because to look at other type of facilities, such as airports. We had an incident a few years ago at Sacramento International Airport. They had just opened a brand new terminal, and the first day they had opened it, there was somebody needing a facility like that. And it did not exist, and they had to basically convert a conference room into an adult changing facility on the spot. So if we look at this thing, broaden its scope as for applications for all public facilities like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lozano.
The chair, just a friendly reminder, there are only 2 more items. We do need to take a break for the captioning at 10:30.
10:30. That's additional motive. That's additional motivation for 2 items. Okay, staff, item number 12.
You mean 13?
There's 13.
Excuse me, thank you. I didn't move my cursor. Thank you.
Item number 13 is a graphic change to figure 11B 406.3.2. In the 2019 intervening code adoption cycle, the location of detectable warnings at parallel curb ramps was changed at section 11B-705.1.2.2.2. It allowed the detectable warnings to be placed 6 to 8 inches back from the face of the curb for constructability reasons. The detectable warning sheets were failing at the joint between the curb and the ramp. At that time, when that figure was changed, the corresponding figure that also shows parallel curb ramps at 11B-406.3.2 was not updated, and it still shows the detectable warnings at the face of the curb and the mat crossing that joint. So we are proposing to simply update the figure so that both sections match each other. Thank you.
Okay, and by changing the graphic, we are aligning with the text, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Questions for staff?
Just comment, big thumbs up. Thank you for doing this.
Yes. Any, Mr. Lozano, please?
I agree with what is being proposed. I do have a question because what impact do DSA staff perceive that will be on these graphics and the requirements as a whole of detectable warnings with the pending passage of the public right-of-way guidelines during the March U.S. Access Board meeting, which does have for perpendicular and parallel curb ramps, it has the detectable warnings at the back of the curb, which is where it was previously, and if it overlapped onto the curb, it was not supposed to be. I know that we did this, it was somewhat of a compromise, the 6 to 8 inches, because that was these ramps being on corners, and therefore it would allow those who use wheeled mobility devices to have a straight shot from the street and through the detectable warnings. And so I'm wondering if you can tell me whether this would be there, you anticipate impact, and that we would maybe have to, in the 2 or 3 years, come back and change all this, including these graphics.
Excuse me for bailing there for a second. Gardeners are here. Gardeners are going. I'm getting back on track here. I'm sorry, excuse me. So, any other comments for staff? If not, please open the public hearing.
Dara, sure.
I want to echo Mr. Lozano's comments. I think he asked a question of staff, and I think they may have tried to answer, but they were muted. Or I'm not sure, but I'm not sure he got an answer, which is we do anticipate that the long-awaited public rights-of-way accessibility guidelines are going to require the detectable warning at the back of the curb, and I don't have an immediate, I guess I'm going to say I'm neutral on whether we change the figure now to match the existing code. That does make some sense, but I do think we're going to need to revisit it. And I just wondered if the staff has any comments on that, because I do think we're going to have an issue shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scher. Any other public comment?
There are no other hands raised at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Lozano?
Oh, a hand went up, sir.
Mr. Lozano, please go ahead.
I didn't raise my hand. I'd appreciate a response to my question.
Yeah, from staff.
Chairperson, are you able to see my hand? It was up. I was trying to respond to Jean earlier.
I cannot see your hand because of your background. Please go ahead if you're ready.
Okay. I apologize for that. Certainly any change in federal regulations would require us to make an update to state regulations to come into compliance with that. And so there could be an implication in the future. However, what we're proposing today is really non-regulatory. It's a change in the figure to align with the language. So the reasoning is that it's really non-substantive, and if there's a change in federal regulations, we would also have to align the text of the California Building Code, Chapter 11B, to align with federal regulations at that time anyways.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Mr. Lozano, did that address your question?
Yes, it gave me the reassurance, and I'm still in support of this.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Arnold, your hand popped up after we closed. Do you want to comment, please?
I just support the comments by Jean Lozano and Dara Scher.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No further public comment. Okay, questions for staff? If not, a motion, please.
This is Kaiser, motion to approve as submitted.
Gene
Second.
Lozano, second.
Brandon, call the question.
Jay Wisnet,
Yes.
Eugene Lozano,
Yes.
Sudhir Agrawal,
Yes.
Dan Kaiser,
Yes.
Bill Zelmer,
Yes.
Brad Wungluck is absent, Michael Gibbons,
Yes.
Homer Mayo,
Yes.
and Rebecca Lita is absent. The motion is carried.
Staff, item 14.
Thank you. Item 14 is our final item for the day. The applicable code section is CBC Chapter 11B, Section 11B-604.8, and the topic is toilet compartments. DSA is proposing to add language requiring a privacy latch at toilet compartment doors. Though privacy latches are commonly provided at both accessible and non-accessible water closet compartments, there is currently no scoping or technical provision requiring privacy latches in wheelchair accessible and ambulatory accessible compartments within multi-user toilet rooms. Privacy latches are already required at single-user occupancy toilet rooms. So in this item, DSA is proposing to add to the technical provisions in Chapter 11B to require privacy latches in wheelchair accessible and ambulatory accessible toilet rooms in multi-user toilet rooms. The provision enhances security and privacy for users, and this item is related to item number 9. The new code language would simply read, and it would amend section 11B-604.8.1.2 titled Doors. The sentence will read, the door shall be self-closing and have a privacy latch. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Questions for staff, Mr. Kaiser?
Interesting question here. It's one that's already been posed to me. Is this privacy latch going to be considered as a locking mechanism? If we recall AB 1732 not too long ago, once we add a locking mechanism, it now, under the definition of the health and safety codes, becomes a single-user toilet facility and must be labeled as gender neutral. So regardless of its location, are we creating a problem here?
Staff?
A latch is different than a lock in that the latch is fully self-enclosed. It doesn't require a key or an additional part. It doesn't require additional knowledge to operate. So I would argue that a latch is different than a lock.
Well, keep in mind that we're not talking about a lock. The health and safety code is real clear. It says locking mechanism, which is nothing more than a latch. As long as it's controlled by that user in that facility, it now becomes a gender neutral single user toilet facility in accordance with the health and safety code. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Single user is defined in the code differently than for multi-user restrooms. It says unisex, single user, or family. And so I do believe that the single user terminology is clear in the code as to what a single user restroom is, as opposed to a compartment in a multi-user toilet.
Well, the definition of single-user toilet facility under the Health and Safety Code, under this specific section, was unique. Unfortunately, legislature wrote this without your help. And it is a different definition. It really simply says that it has one or more, no more than one water closet or one urinal. That's the definition of a single-user toilet facility under the state law.
Correct, but regulatory requirements clarify statute, and I do believe that what's provided in the code in 11B that identifies what a single-user toilet is more specifically actually directs the difference here. Realistically, right now, privacy latches are provided all the time in multi-user restrooms for compartments, even though they're not regulatorily required, and that change hasn't happened. And so it's important to understand that our regulations are what clarify what's in statute. That's how regulations work. We're given the mandate, and then we need to put it in code so that it's clarified, and the single user is addressed in the code as to what it is.
No, I understand. However, I'm already dealing with one lawsuit because somebody is arguing this very point. And it's, you have not addressed gender neutral single user toilet facilities in Title 24. We've managed to stay clear of that, you know, and I appreciate that, but I'm dealing with this in reality now. And I think that we're going to create more of these issues if this lawsuit prevails. So it'll be interesting to see. But I think we're creating a problem. I understand your rationale. I understand the practical aspect of it. And I never would have twisted this code section otherwise and prior to this. Just realize that this is actually going on right now. Thank you.
Eric has his hand up.
Any other questions for staff? And then I'll take Eric. Michael.
Oh, I just wanted to reflect what Dan said too. I understand what is being said about regulations attempting to clarify the statute, but in all the stuff that I've ever seen in court, the statute always ends up because it created the regulation in the first place. So I think Dan's got a very good point about that. Thank you.
Eric.
Thank you, Chairperson. Definitions, if not included in the CBC, would defer to collegiate definitions. When referencing lack and latch, they're not synonymous. A latch does not require a key, and typically if you are operating a lock, it requires a key or some other mechanism of actually, as Michelle pointed out, secondarily locking the device. So I'm not sure that they're synonymous.
How would you apply the current health and safety code then, where it simply says a locking mechanism? We see these all the time. There's no key. It's simply a flip of the wrist. It has to be. It cannot be a key. We don't need to beat this dead horse today. However, I think this is one of those things that you do need to look at and concern yourself because lawsuits are already popping up. The question was real simply why I didn't put a gender neutral sign on a compartment within a men's restroom, which, okay, that's what I'm dealing with.
Good. Mr. Zillmer.
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm not sure what alternative we have. I'm going to want a device on the door so that I can keep other people from coming in. Whether we call it a lock or not, I don't really care.
Thank you. Staff.
So I wanted to clarify something that Michael Gibbons said. While I'm correct that regulations clarify statute, it was regulations that already had a definition for single user in the code already that actually had, the way I understand it, influenced the legislature in that single user terminology to state it is those bathrooms that are defined as single user technically in the code. And so when that law was passed, we did see that a change was needed because that single user was already defined in the code. It is the law that came after that. And so I understand that the questions posed here, but it's very difficult to reconcile what potential lawsuits could be when we actually write code language. And because we're analyzing it as to what's there and what's known. And that's why I do believe that's why they use the term single user restrooms in the legislation, because it was already defined as to what those are in the code with the unisex signs already, because they have both signs on it. So that is the use that the legislature was considering when they actually proposed the law, but they just didn't define and state that single user is as defined in the building code. It's kind of a cart before the horse thing. So.
That could be. We have 5 minutes before we lose our captioner, and we are discussing and debating things that are possible. And I appreciate, Dan, the things that you have to go through because of.
Sir, we're losing your audio. If you could
Try again.
Thank you, sir.
There we go. This side works today. All right, so we're going to lose our captioner here in a minute. If we want to continue this, we have not had public comment yet. We are debating something that we can't do anything other than anticipate. So let's keep that in mind. I'm going to suggest, unless we think we're going to solve this in the next 2 minutes. No, we're going to do it. Brandon, let's call the 10 minutes right now for the captioner. You said, I think 10:30.
On this end, it's 10:23.
Okay. Is our captioner good for another 7 minutes or so?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's go ahead and try and wrap this up and get done. Okay, open public comment.
Dara, sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize my hand was up. I just want to withdraw written comments on this because we misunderstood its connection to the other two urinal compartment sections. So we're neutral on this proposal.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Ms. Arnold? Anybody else in public?
Yes, I support whatever Darshur says, but also I've seen, and I don't know if this is more of a question, but at a place called Ideal Bar and Grill in Santa Cruz, in the bathroom, they have both a urinal and a toilet. And the urinal is about 9 inches, maybe 8 inches off the floor, and had been next to the grab bar next to the toilet. And that was a problem. And I don't think too many people want to go in that are women in the general public want to go into what would be a men's restroom. But we've always had unisex bathrooms, and they've been great, and family restrooms, and they've been great too. So are we just adding another
Ms.
sign
Arnold?
that's gender neutral here?
Ms. Arnold, that does not apply to this application, to this code change or proposal.
So this would add a gender neutral sign on the
This has,
bathroom.
this has nothing to do with a sign. This is adding a privacy latch to the door in a compartment.
Oh, okay. The privacy latch, the discussion that I think Dan was saying was going to cause a problem with signage.
It has nothing to do with the application.
Okay,
So,
my
thank you.
apologies. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
No other
Seeing-
hands raised.
Okay, close public comment.
Kaiser, motion to approve as submitted.
Second, Sudhir
Palmer.
Agrawal.
Made the second?
Sudhir Agrawal.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Nobody's hands up. Okay, call the question.
Jay Wisnick,
Yes.
Eugene Lozano,
Yes.
Sudhir Agrawal,
Yes.
Dan Kaiser,
Yes.
Bill Zelmer,
Yes.
Brad Wongluck is absent, Michael Gibbons,
Yes.
Homer Mayo,
Yes.
and Rebecca Lita is absent. The motion is carried. Before moving forward, Chair, we would need to make a motion to accept the entire agenda item 6.
Kaiser, motion to approve all DSA and HCD items, actions taken the last 2 days.
Mike Gibbons, second.
Question?
Mia has her hand up.
Oops. Hello, Mayo. Go
Hey
ahead.
there. I know we're getting ready to adjourn. I just want to thank all of the Code Advisory Committee members that have volunteered their time to research and dive into these code packages. We utilize this same group for 3 years, and this is the second phase of that. And we normally advertise this late this year to reconstitute the Code Advisory Committee, and I want to make you all aware that we'll be sending out a call for applications later in the year. I especially want to thank Chair Wiesnatt for his long time dedication to this process. I know many of you have worked with him for many years on this, and so he reminded me yesterday that he's been doing this since 1991, and that's quite a commitment. So I just wanted to thank everyone before we close the meeting today.
Thank you, Mia. And just so that I have a chance to thank many of you that I've worked with over this time, I will not be requesting or participating next year. This is my last year. And as she says, I started this conversation when Mr. Mankins was holding a small group in an upstairs conference room. And it's progressed since then. I've participated in a number of different venues, not only DSA, and it's been incredibly rewarding. I've learned a lot. I have tremendous appreciation for everybody that's involved in this process. So my thanks to everyone, the many people I've worked with at DSA who I believe are firmly committed to access and the way to anticipate and promote it. So I wish you all well. I'll be watching, I'm not going away from the practice, but I will not be on the committee next year. So good luck
Thank
to
you,
you
Jay.
all.
Yeah, Jay, thanks so much. It's been a real honor working with you. And you've been, in all the years I've been here, you've by far outshined everybody else as leading this committee. And I did it for a number of years and I wasn't even remotely. You were great. Thank you for everything. Gonna miss you.
Thank you, Jim. We'll miss you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
We still haven't voted.
Yeah, we still gotta we still gotta get done here, folks.
DSA has their hand up if you
Yes,
can't.
I can see that. Yes.
Okay.
I just
DSA.
want to say quickly that I've been only at this at 10 years at this level. And so I've appreciated your masterful operation of the committee. And so thank you, Jay, for your service. And to everyone
Mr.
else,
Chair,
thank you for being here today and listening to our proposals and providing your guidance.
Well, thank you all. I appreciate that. Okay,
Chairman?
Mr. Lozano.
Yes, I'm sorry. I know we need to wrap this up, but I really want to express my appreciation since I've been on this committee since 1995, having worked with you, and I greatly appreciated your patience, understanding, respect for those of us from the disability community, hearing our issues, and sometimes helping us get through the maze of the bureaucracy when it comes to these regulations. You have been a real asset, and we really feel that you have contributed a great deal to the advancement of access over these years. And I also want to thank DSA staff for accommodating me, as they always have, and HCD too there. So thank you very much, everyone, and I'm sorry for slowing up things. And I know we got a motion to approve.
It never slows it up. We're always just getting the input. So thank you, Gene. I appreciate it. It's been a long set of years. Okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, actually, we haven't voted on
the acceptance.
Yeah.
I thought we did.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Jay Wisnant,
Yes.
Eugene Lozano,
Yes.
Sudhir Agrawal,
Yes.
Dan Kaiser,
Yes.
Bill Zillmer,
Yes.
Brad Wungluck is absent, Michael Gibbons,
Yes.
Omer Mayel,
Yes.
and Rebecca Leda is absent. And then Mia, do we need to take a roll call vote to adjourn?
I don't think so. I think we're okay. Yeah.
Okay. It's probably unanimous.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
Everybody in favor?
Yes.
Yay.
Yay.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you, Jay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks again,
Thank you.
Jay.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks,
You all
guys.
take care
Stay
now.
safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you to our interpreters and our captioner also. Great job.
Thank you.